Fishes!
Cool. So I'm joined here today with Rob Dos Santos, filmmaker, and many other talents. So how's it going, Rob?
Good, yeah, very good. Very happy to be excited to see what comes from this.
Yeah, and as I said, it's, I mean, everybody's doing podcasts now, but it's one of those things where, we'll talk about film, but it's also that general chit-chat and wherever it heads to. But, so do you want to tell the audience a bit about you and your filmmaking aspect of things?
Okay, I'll keep it brief. So, long story short, I'm been making commercials for a while now. Started out in music videos. Before that, I was a lawyer, practicing attorney, and one day I just decided this ain't it. So I've been had been in a search for what is it for a number of years, and that was an interesting time. And now that I've found it, I've kind of grabbed on with both hands, and I'm loving it.
Yeah. So this is the thing I always forget, that you were like a lawyer, entertainment lawyer, because when we did Fry Barry, you were the first person that I went to look at the contracts and make sure, is this okay? Is this okay? And it's like, no, the fucking yeah, you got to make sure you got to rewrite the clause or whatever. So that helped. That helped it like a shitload.
Yeah, and it's helped me as well. And can we swear?
Yeah.
Fuck
I
yeah.
just did.
Cool.
Fuck it.
So I started out in just pure commercial law, and the thing with entertainment law is it's a nice mixture of labor law and commercial law and a few things, but at the end of the day it mostly revolves around contracts and getting people to move here, do this, do that. So I had a nice background with that, and the fortunate nature of that is it's really helped me with what I'm doing, because it sets me apart in quite a strong way.
I think most, like, when it came to that contract and I was looking at it, I was like, I don't know what this means, I don't know what that means, and so it really helped a lot, speaking to you and going through this thing, this means this means that, and I was like, shit, I wouldn't have known, and and I think that's the thing with when it comes to contracts with filmmakers, it's when it comes to like sales agents and stuff like that, a lot of filmmakers get badly fucked over where they don't understand the terms and conditions on a lot of this stuff, when it comes to even like the money that they put in for marketing or whatever, or how long the contract is for the film and stuff like that. So it can really mess up a filmmaker for a long period of time.
Yeah, it can completely derail. I know a few that it's derailed their entire careers. It's I think people are so hungry to get their first film done or to get a
they just want to get it out. That's all they want. They want to get it out.
They see the paper and they see gold, and more often than not, it's the opposite. Those pieces of paper are quite dangerous.
I think that's the thing. Like with most like filmmakers, like even with actors, they just want to act. We just want to make films. Yeah. We just want to, we just want to do stuff, and that's why people are always super keen just to do anything. And then that's also a bad thing, because they'll rock up on set and it might be they haven't done the research about the director or the DP or whatever, and they get to set and they're like, oh, this is a fucking joke film, this is like a Mickey Mouse film.
Yeah.
And it's sad, because the people just want to, we want to do what we love doing,
Yeah. And I think that's maybe one of the truths is, for a lot of us, we would do this for free.
Yeah, exactly.
If I'm very honest, and if I could just have my bottom line met, I would do what I do. I'm very happy and I need nothing more.
Yeah. It's one of those things, when people say, if you had, if you became rich or you won the lottery, and some people go, I'd fucking do nothing. I'd fucking sit there and do nothing. Or people go, yeah, I'll just travel. And it's one of those things like, if I won the lottery and I had so much money, I'll be working way harder than I'm working now. I mean, I'll be putting all that money into like making movies, and I'd be quite happy to, just to be like working like more and working on the stuff that you want to shoot on, what you want to create.
So here's an interesting concept is for me personally, and I would never want to win the lottery. It's the idea of winning the lottery, for me, I think is kind of a nightmare. I've always thought that if I had to win the lottery, I think two things would be true. One is this might all be a dream because the chances of that are just impossible and would make me a bit cautious as to what level in existence this is. And then something else is, I think a lot of people in our generation are looking for a nice fast track to something. And I think the best understanding is that it's a long journey, this whole road.
Yeah.
And
well, people go into, like, you know, we're talking about the industry or any job, people go into it for the wrong reasons.
Yeah.
You know.
And I think if you got that lotto ticket and were able to get what you wanted, you'd be the most unhappy person in the world. Is the joy is in that entire process of getting to the point of whatever it is that you want to do.
Yeah, it's the progress of everything. It's the learning, it's the discipline that you have throughout, you know, making different content and the stuff that you learning. And if it's just, you know, it takes time to be good at what you do, and it takes experience.
Yeah.
And that's why there's those certain filmmakers that, you know, they've either got a nice trust fund baby there and they get thrown loads of money, but they can't do what we can do. You know, they just want to throw everything together and go, oh, we can do this and do that, and they don't know the ins and outs of how it actually works and its experience. I mean, I always look back at, you know, when I was starting out doing acting, you know, I'd do like extra work back in the day, and here and there I'd get like a featured part and a few lines and stuff like that. And it's one of those things where I'm like, oh, I'm an actor. Yeah, I work in a fucking clothes shop down the road, you know. And then it's funny, like when you look back on yourself like 20 years later, you're like, shit, I was fucking terrible back then at doing what I was doing. I wasn't a good actor at all or anything like that. And it comes with time and experience. And, you know, as a director yourself, you know, when you're on set, you know, you can tell when somebody's got experience, you know?
Yeah. No, it's you can feel it. It's tangible.
Yeah. And then with your film career, like you said, you've done commercials and you've done short films. So, you know, I remember we were chatting like a while ago, you want to head into feature films.
So started out in the law, and then started noodling about. And I think the end goal is features. Like that's very much, and I think it's most people's end goals in some way, shape or form. But it seems there's like a hopscotch that you've got to do in South Africa at least, and that's you start out making a bit of content, which I think I'll probably skip because that's only been a recent development, but I think that's where most people are at. And you move into the music video space, and I was very lucky I had a good partnership with Warner Music. There's some beautiful people there, and they fed me an extraordinary amount of work and some good work, and that was my film school essentially. And I got to music videos, and you'll know this, great because you can experiment, you can go crazy, and you can do something different on each one.
Yeah, you see that's the thing. I think with the music videos, it was always, you know, I think I did like one great music video when I moved here, and from there, all the bands let me do anything I wanted. So I can be very creative, and if it wasn't like very visual, it was like a short story within a music video and stuff like that. So it gave me a lot of time to experiment, but at the same time, even though I could do whatever I wanted, I was still restrained in so many ways because I'm like, it's got to match the music. It's got to do this. But it was like a cool way of doing short films that already has an audience, which is the band's fans and stuff like that. So it promoted it a lot more than just doing a normal short film that hardly gets out there or just goes online. Yeah,
and a short film can take half a year, sometimes a year to make, whereas music videos, they come out quite frequently and you've got to be on the move. So it's nice they're painting within the lines but still having an incredible amount of freedom. And I had that with Warner as well. Did a really great music video, and they we're like, okay, we'll give you some room to do what you want to do. So each music video for me was, let's shoot anamorphic, or let's shoot on zoom, or let's get a gimbal and let's try see how this moves. Okay, let's try not move the camera at all.
And that was the cool films, just experimenting for yourself. Like, I want to try this, I want to try that, I want to try these lenses, and I think that was always the cool thing about it, that you can challenge yourself and experiment on doing certain stuff that you want to do like later.
And then the next jump, I suppose, is to commercials, and that's the box gets a lot smaller.
Well, then you got the pain in the ass clients and shit.
You got a lot of things to deal with, but the tools get bigger, and the crews get bigger, and I think you get a bit of just experience of having to handle clients and having to handle agency and everybody else coming in, and I think that's it can be seen as a negative thing, because it can be difficult.
But I think it's a good learning curve, because when you're dealing with studios and producers, I think it all feeds hand in hand. But obviously, a lot of the time with like commercials, like the commercials that I've done, I've done a handful of commercials, and you obviously, sometimes they'll have the idea and you got to execute it, and you change a bit here and there and make the clients happy, and then sometimes the clients end up changing things, and you're like, oh no, like why do you want to do this, or why do you want to do that? But I think it's a good thing at the end of the day, just with training, and obviously again it's a big leap from doing short films where you're actually dealing with like or music videos where you're actually dealing with like a hell of a lot more budget and money. And I think one of the last commercials I did was for Toyota, and they had the brief was like super small, but I came to the table with a bigger, better idea and stuff, and I had like a lot of control, which is also quite rare with commercials. But it's one of those things where I don't mind doing commercials, and it's great money, but I'm also not going to go out and look for it or pitch for it. Like, if they want me, then they want me, then that's cool. But I've also got the feature film thing and the writing and all that. So I mean, if it comes about, then I'll do it. But I'm not going to go out like looking for it.
So ads enjoy to an extent, and there's some good fun in it. And for me, I think it's more, I'm less concerned about the result and more concerned about the things that go into that, and just being on set and just being in sound and edits. It's the best place in the world, every one of those places. So I think it's irregardless of where we find ourselves, so long as you're making. I think that's
great, and that's why I always say, at the end of the day, with any filmmaker, it's content. You need, it's easy to say, oh, I'll be good at this, or I'll be good at that, or I can do this. Like, at the end of the day, if you haven't got the content to show and to prove what you've done, then it doesn't matter. Like you got to have that content to sell yourself at the end of the day.
Yeah, you've got to have your book, and you learn things on set. I think
that's the best place to learn, and that's why you get these film schools and stuff. It's like you got to be the most you're going to learn is when you're actually on set and you're actually doing what you're supposed to be doing.
Yeah, I think it's very much. If I look now, whenever I used to finish a shoot, I would probably need sleep for the next 3 days. I would be broken and a bit grumpy by the end of it. But now I think just being able to just manage things a little bit better is, I've finished my shoots and usually able to go out that evening, because I think also when you start out, you're biting out a little bit more than you can chew. So you're doing a lot of things that add a bit of pressure.
Yeah, but it's one of those things, like you said, going from shorts to music videos or commercials, and then eventually feature films. It's, obviously you're learning, throughout all those years, and working with, whether it's a visual effects artist or the production designer, or in every discipline. And I think it's one, like, I remember my friend said to me, he he came down from England, and he was helping me on set for a week or so. And while he was on set, he said, there's about 20, 30 people that are coming up to you, coming up to me and asking me all these questions. And I was like, how do you know all the answers? I was like, well, you got to know all the answers. You should know. It's your fucking movie. You should know fucking every answer. And I think it made him think, because it's just one of those things where, if you've created the story in this film and you want it to look like this, and you want the lights to look like this, or whatever it is, it's like you should know all the answers. And that's why, at the end of a shoot, you're just exhausted because your brain is just mashed.
Operating.
Yeah.
It's I've adopted a slightly different approach to that. Is I think when I started out, the idea was to know everything, and I've realized that I'm not infallible and I don't always have the answers. So one thing I like to do is try to arm the people that I'm working with, because I've just realized how collaborative this medium is, and I try to arm the people around me on set just with the guide or the rule book, or just more rather an understanding of what it is that we're doing.
Yeah.
So that if I can explain what it is that's going on and get them to buy in at a very early stage, that takes a lot of pressure off of me.
Yeah. But this is the thing. You hire people to do. You have this idea, and your job. Like, I've always been interested in every department and how it works, and as an actor, I've also learned more different departments as well. But it's one of those things where I think it's good to know everybody's job to an extent, but at the same time, it's one of those things. It's your job to get these people on board, to believe in what this picture that you want, and relaying that message onto them so they understand it, so they can do it. You don't have to worry about how to do everything with their job. They know how to do it. You have this idea. You hiring all these people to come on board to relay your story and your details and what you want and all this, and as long as you give them those details and they're on the same page, and I think, like I said, I think it's good to know all the different departments, but at the same time, you don't need to know all the details, how, whether it's wardrobe, how to make this or how to make, you don't need to know that. You have your treatment or your pitch deck or your references, and I want the wardrobe to be like this or like that. As long as you're relaying that information on and you're on the same page, then that's all you need to do.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think as long as you've got intention, and the things that you're doing are intentional when you're on set, and you're not just giving up and letting everybody else, I think you in good stead. But something that I do as a little trick is, usually I'd get on set and I'd be trying to do 10 things at once. I'd get on there and I'd even be helping people move things. I'd be like, we've got to get this here, and leading the charge, which I always, and I still to an extent believe should be the way, as you should be at the front of everything. I think there's some people who hang in the wings and sit far away from set, and I think each process is his own, but that's not mine. But something I've started doing is I would actually arrive an hour late on set in the morning, and the producer I work with knows this. It's not.
They're like, oh my god, the director's on set now.
It's not an ego thing or anything like that. It's what I found is when I arrived in the morning, I would get there and I would get 99 questions, and I would be in it, deep in it, and by the time we're rolling, my adrenaline is maxed out and I'm broken. And I tried it once, very intentionally. I said, Brian, I'm going to be late tomorrow. Everybody knows what I want. Everybody knows what I'm going to do.
Yeah, you've had the meetings, you've had the pre-prod.
The meetings. I just want to see what happens. He said, cool, don't stress about it. Arrive when you arrive. Arrived on set, and people had taken the initiative and done what they believed was needed to be done. Got there, and it's exactly what it would have been had I been there.
And if anything, tweaks, small
If
tweaks.
anything, maybe small tweaks. And I think that's, for me, the key is to have, because it is a collaborative medium and people want to be involved. And I think you get some creatives and some directors who are very steadfast. This is what I want. This is how I want it.
I think I'm like that. I'm like the first one to arrive on set, and I'm probably the last one to leave set.
I'm definitely the last, but I think having if I'm in a room, I know I'm not the smartest person in the world, even though I try very hard to be, but I'm very sure that I'm not. But I do know that if I've got 46 people in a room and I can take all of their ideas, it's definitely going to be better than just one person.
100%. Yeah, 100%.
So
that's why everything I always say, it's like, you know, some people look at directors and they think we want all the glory and all this, and I'm like, shit, man, like if it wasn't for the sound guy, if it wasn't for the actors, if it wasn't for production design, you know, all that is shown on picture, and that's why, like, you know, if I get a trophy or a poster or whatever, it's like it's not just my work, it's everybody's work, and that's all. You know, if it wasn't for any of those people, the film would be terrible. Yeah, it would just be me. Yeah. You know, and that would be terrible. And you can't do everything. And you know, two heads is always better than one. And you know, I'm the first to abandon an idea if somebody comes out with a better idea, because at the same time you're on the same team. If it's a better idea than yours, then like go for it.
Then it's the better idea.
It's the better idea.
You've got to be a madman if you're not taking the best idea.
And I think some directors forget, like, we're on the same side.
Yeah, everyone's.
This guy's, just because this person came out with this idea, it doesn't matter. It's like we're all on the same side. If it's going to make the picture better, it's going to make the picture better.
So I'll qualify that idea with another idea, and that is the fact that everyone involved in a production is making their own version in their minds of whatever script or whatever boards that you're shooting. So everyone, from whether it's the actor to the cinematographer, they see something. So you need to
you need to obviously shape it here and there.
You need to very much shape it. You need to be able to say quite easily, and I battled with this at the beginning, is the ability to say no. And learning how to say no is probably the most important thing I've ever learned in my life.
And that's the thing. It's like, I think it's important. Like, it's also the people that you work with to understand. Like, I'm not digging at you for saying no. It's just, it's meant to be more this way than that way. You know.
Yeah. There's the unfortunate. Sometimes that's reciprocated, where the best idea wins isn't reciprocated, and unfortunately, at the end of the day, is you've got to have a single guiding vision. I've only really battled with that once before, but generally it goes on pretty well. And you do need to keep it to a minimum. If everyone's coming with ideas constantly,
there's too many cooks in the kitchen.
So it's very much a balancing act. But if you can keep it within reason, I think it's very.
I mean, the people that I always surround myself with is the people that I admire and the people that I think are amazing at what they do. But what I do like doing, they're already great, they're already brilliant, but I do like to push them to be better. And they're already great already, but I do like to push them, whatever department, whether it's acting or production design or set design or whatever. I do like to push them a bit more. You know, can we do this? Can we do that? You know, it might take a little bit longer, but I do like to push them to get the best version of themselves or the best work out there. And then a lot of people come up to me afterward and said, you know, I'm so happy that you pushed me to do this. Yeah, it was a bit of a headache and it took a bit longer, but I'm like, dude, your work speaks for itself. It's amazing, and I'm happy that I pushed them a bit more. And they might have been irritated with me at the time for doing it, but their work speaks for itself, and they always do like an amazing job. So I always think it's important to surround yourself with the people that you like and trust and admire, and that's why they're there anyway. You know, the people that you put around you, they're around you for a reason. You know.
Yeah. No, that's absolutely true. Something, and I mentioned this before we started recording. Something that's of interest to me is just the process is something I battled with. I started out. I didn't know there was such thing as a creative process. Having gone to law school, there's no process. You sit down and you do what you've got to do. But I've learned, and I think the hard way, that there's such a thing as a creative process. What, like, in short, is your creative process?
And what from like?
Maybe we take say writing, for example. If you were to write, so I'll maybe give you my background and how I struggled. Is so for me is I didn't understand that creativity was non-linear. I just assumed, like, if you put in the hours, you get the results, and it couldn't be further from the truth. It's I take that back. It absolutely is the truth. If you put in enough hours and enough dedication, you'll get it. But it's not, I'm going to set aside 8 hours today and I'm going to walk out with a result. And there was a quote that haunted me for a very long time, and that was, creative can sit down and have the most productive day of their life and have nothing to show for it at all. Whereas if you take that into other professions, as a doctor will say, I saw this many patients, I saved this many lives. A lawyer, I billed this many hours, and so forth. Whereas you might have your best idea or make a breakthrough and just to come up with something, but it's not written down, or you might just write a log line and it might take you an entire day. It could take a week to get there. So,
And you also got to be in the mood to write. That's the other thing.
You've got to, in a weird way, be in a mood to write, and it's so for me, on a process note, is I'll generally start getting into rhythm. Is I'll write as soon as I wake up. If I leave it for a bit later, I get distracted. So my process is wake up and write. And usually, if I'm writing something emotional or requires something, I'll agitate myself. So I'll put on music which will elicit a type of emotion.
Yeah, I'll do that a lot with music. Like I'll end up playing like, like the Blade Runner soundtrack or whatever theme that I'm going for, whatever genre film that I'm making. I'll have that like Hans Zimmer playing in the background or stuff like that.
Do music with vocals, or is it just generally more?
Well, it just depends on what the type of film that I'm writing.
Okay.
But I'll always. I'll have the idea, I know where the film's going to go, and then I'll always do that. I'll always just do a breakdown, like a scene breakdown, or just, if I'm not doing a linear breakdown, I'll write scenes that I picture in this movie. So like, this is a cool thing, this is a cool idea, this will happen, or this will happen. And then it will be the process of fleshing it out and then start putting stuff together. But I'll know like how the movie's going to end. So it's just getting from A to B. But I'll always, depending on the film that I'm writing, I'll always play that like music in the background where it's the right mood. Because it's like when I write, I'm most creative and I get the most work done at night. It's like from
opposite we are.
Yeah, so it's from it's probably from 10, 11 o'clock at night till 4 in the morning. Wow. They're my best hours of ideas and of creativity, and that's the thing. Sometimes when that ball starts rolling and I'm getting all these ideas, and I'm like, fuck, it's 4 a.m. I'm gonna have to go to sleep, and but that like what you were saying before, we can spend hours on something and then abandon it and be like, nah, I don't know, there was some good ideas there or whatever, and then you end up going a different route or a different thing. But I think that's why. Artists, no matter what you do as an artist, I think I read most artists deal with depression, and it's one of those things where it's just like, okay, so for me, my career right now, I write a hell of a lot, but the last time I was on set was in January doing a commercial that I was acting in, and then before that was like a year ago. Doing a short, so I haven't been on set for a while, but I'm busy writing, speaking to producers and investors and all that. But I get real down. I get like really depressed and down because I'm like, I just want to be on set, and I'm not just shooting shit for the sake of it. So I need to put the time and effort into whatever these scripts. But I get really down, without doing what you love.
Yeah.
So I just want to be on set, and that's when I'm most happy.
Yeah.
So in my normal life, I'm just like, my life's like mediocre. I'm just compared to being on set and filming it. And that's the thing. And when it comes down to the life that you live in, because I've got a very unhealthy balance of like work. I just want to work all the time, and I'm most happy when I'm working. But that balance is like when you're actually doing the film. So let's say we're shooting a short film or we're shooting a feature. It's when you add up the time. Like as an actor. So when I go on set and I'm hired as an actor, we're sitting we arrive on set, we get the makeup done and everything, and then we sit in the trailer, and then after the trailer we're on set for 2 hours or 3 hours, and then you're done. So when it comes down to it, you're only doing it for 3 hours, and then that's it. And then it's like, then you're down again until you do the next one. So it's like that drug that you're chasing the whole time just to be happy, and that's why I think I've got that unhealthy balance of where I base my happiness on my work that I do. And then as I said, when it comes to real life, I'm just like, it's so fucking boring without doing what I love doing.
I definitely understand that, and that makes perfect sense. So I've got maybe a story, and maybe this will resonate with you. Is I'll get asked by friends, colleagues, some people I get introduced to, and they want to get into directing, or they also want to make the leap from law. I've had a few people I've chatted to about that, and some other things. They want to get into the creative industry, and they say, should I do it? And I've got a little story which I always mention to them. And the story goes as follows: is there's two boxers. Now, both of them are very talented, naturally gifted, and both of them have the ability to win a world championship. And they couldn't be more different. The one boxer is just a natural athlete, and he loves to wake up very early in the morning. He loves to go for a jog, then he loves to go to the gym, works out in the gym. He eats his little tuna breakfast that he made for himself, and he's very meticulous about what he eats. And he spends all day in the gym, he boxes, and at night he goes home and he goes to bed very early, doesn't go out and partying. In fact, he doesn't enjoy partying. And all these difficult things about being a boxer, he loves. He lives for them. He cares deeply about what he eats, and eating little or nutritional food brings him joy because he's very happy to do that. Same thing with waking up at 5 a.m. Same thing with missing out on all the parties and the booze and the drinking. And on the flip side, we've got another boxer who hates the fact that he has to do all those things. He's naturally gifted. He can knock someone out in a single punch. But he wants to go out boozing, and he wants to go to parties, and he hates that he has to miss those things. And he hates having to wake up at 5 a.m. And he's only alive when he's in the ring. And that's his best time. And these two go along it for 10 years. And the guy who enjoys eating a little bit of food and wake up early, he doesn't win the championship. But the other guy, he goes and wins the championship. You'd ask yourself, who had the better life? And you've got to say by far the first boxer. Because he was fulfilled at all times. And if you had to look at the monumental scale of the universe, what is so different to lifting up a piece of metal as to going for a jog down the road? In the greater scheme of things, there's no difference between the two. But one of them spent every waking moment of his day doing what he wanted to do. And the other spent his life doing what he didn't want to do so that he could get to doing what he wanted to do. So taking that in mind and applying that to creativity and what we do is you're going to be spending an enormous amount of time preparing and post-preparing and knocking your head against a wall and staying up till 4 a.m. And if you can...
So am I the first boxer or the second boxer?
Well, it's up to you to decide. And I think that's the point that it gets to is you can decide where you find joy in life. And maybe you can't, because there's some people who just naturally incline to things. So if you can find out what it is that you love in the mundane, and find pure joy in that, doesn't matter what you do, you'll always be really happy.
Yeah. I that's why I said I just find it hard that like that balance of like I don't find it hard. It's just one of those things where I base my happiness on what I love doing, and that's all. If I could work every day, I'd work every day. You know what I mean?
I'm the same.
It's like I'm not lazy in any
with
way. I will get up at whatever time and I'll do it.
Do whatever
but
you
it's
gotta do.
obviously with filmmaking, it's one of the hardest professions of even getting the opportunity to direct this or to write that. And there's only majority of the time there's only one director, there's only one writer. So to even get to that job and do that thing, it's already like a big achievement.
Yeah.
But it's just like it's that unhealthy balance of it's the chase. It's just that chase of being bigger and better and doing better than what you did last time. But that's what's also fun, is that chase. And then when you're there, it's great. And then there's a bit of a downer, and then you do something else again. So you're just constantly chasing yourself. And then when it comes to it's like when you're at school as a kid. You're at school and you're like, oh, I don't want to go to school. And then you just want to play with your friends after school, and you want to go out, or you want to play on the computer, or you want to go chase girls, or whatever. It's that whole thing, doing one thing and looking forward to something else, but you're doing it. Not that having a girlfriend and all that isn't good, but that's what's. I'm like, if I'm out, I'm the film guy. It's like we'll sit there and we'll chat about movies, and that's what we're gonna that's what we're gonna chat about.
That brings us joy.
And that brings us joy. And I remember, I don't know if I mentioned this in the last podcast, I can't remember, but it was one of those things with one of my ex-girlfriends. She said, all you talk about is film. Like, can't you talk about something else? And I'm like, well, I fucking love film. I've loved talking about it. She goes, when we go to this braai today, don't fucking talk about film, talk about something else.
So you didn't say a word the whole day?
No, so this is what happened. So I turned up at the braai, and the first guy that comes up to me, he says, hey Ryan, because he knows I'm the film guy. So he starts talking about film, and I look over at my girlfriend, and she's like, oh God. Like that, because that's the thing. So it's even if I try not to talk about it, somebody will always come to me and go, hey Ryan, did you see this film, or what did you think of that? So I can't get out of it. And then I enjoy that conversation, because there's so many aspects in film. It's not just like, did you enjoy the film? There's so many areas, whether the lighting or the cinematography or whatever. There's so many different things to talk about that you can talk about it endless. And that's why and this sounds like pretty rude, but it's like you have to have a pretty interesting job for me to like listen to and to take notice and go, fucking hell, that's like a really interesting job, and I find it fascinating. But when somebody's doing a job that doesn't interest me, and it's nothing against them, and it's nothing against what they do or anything like that, it's just like, it's unneeded. And it's not me, it sounds like I'm being rude, but it's one of those things where it's like somebody talking about the most boringest thing to me. And I'm just like, and I'm not saying like, hey, if you're not in film, like, you don't know what you're fucking doing. For me, that's how I feel. In me, like, that's the only, because I'm shit at everything else. I'm only good at doing film. So it's one of those things where to take in and to be interested in something, I've got to really enjoy it, or I've got to really, and if I don't know about a certain thing, or it's a really interesting job that has nothing to do with film, I'm really interested, because I'm like, oh, that's interesting. How does that work? How do you do that? But if it's a certain type of job, I'm just like, it just goes over my head, and I don't know if it's the small concentration span for something that I'm just not. It's like if somebody's talking about politics or something like that, I'm just like, ugh, it's like, I just, if it doesn't interest me, I'm just like, it's hard to keep my attention on what we're talking about,
No, I hear you, and I think it's the hallmark of of someone who is good at what they do and is going to make a success out of what they do. And also, I think most of the best people in their fields, they don't. This isn't towards you. This is towards some people, but they don't always make the best humans, but they very often result in the best persons in that field. Is that obsession and wholehearted obsession in exactly what you're doing. And some people do have the ability to just turn it on and turn it off.
Yeah.
And
I
have a family life. I used to be, I think I used to be the life of a party. I used to be quite interesting, and now I find myself to be distinctly uninteresting. If you're not
I feel like that.
talking
I feel very much like that.
The latitude between the highlights and the dark, and how the roll off in the whites in film is substantially better than that of digital. I'm not too interested in the conversation.
But if you're also surrounded by the people that's not in film, they're also like what I was just saying. It's the other way around. They're going, "What the fuck is he talking about?"
Yeah,
they have no idea what you're talking about.
Completely bored by my existence, and I think some people are like, "Oh, you do directing? That's really interesting." And then
What does a director do?
I can see the light in their eyes just die, because I'm waiting all day to be asked that question. I can't wait to tell you.
What's that saying? Is it's like, how do you know somebody's a filmmaker? They will tell you. They will tell you.
Ain't that the truth? Ain't that the truth? But I think that's why I started the movie night, is to get people together and just have us watch films and just talk about it. Is it's nice to be in a room full of other people who share the same disease as you.
Yeah, and that's what's great. So Rob started a movie night every Thursday, and it feels like it comes around every 2 days.
It does.
And he has this movie night in Golden, and it's like a little cinema there, and you guys pick films. I've only been to one night, and I still need
very
to
lucky
come
to
by.
have you there.
And but it's cool. It's like you said, you're surrounded by all those people. That's why I love going to film festivals, because it's all those people that like dig film, and you start talking about film. It's like you're in the best place. But it's awesome. Yeah, awesome. I had a really cool night. It was an awesome night, just to get these people together that love film and choose all these like random or weird or new new films.
Yeah. So, no, I think that's a boring question.
What?
It's just about the quantity of films. Maybe
What do you mean?
Maybe
Like,
I'll ask you a question. Is like, what's your favorite film?
it's a fucking hard one. Everybody always gets asked this, and everybody always struggles to.
It's interesting.
Or they say, because I like so many different genres.
What's your number one? And I get. Maybe it's because I've got my number one, but I get like quite specific on this. Like, what is your die film? The thing that you would die for? That number one film.
I love.
Just one. Don't give me two. You give me one. I don't want to.
Okay, I'm just gonna go with the childhood film that I love, and I still love it today, and it's because the film ties everything up that is ever mentioned in the film. Is Back to the Future. It's just a great film. Nothing needs to be. There's nothing wrong with it. It's just a great, entertaining film. And when I look back on those like 80s films that I love, it's like when you watch Back to the Future as a kid, there's two reasons when you're a kid that you got a Walkman because of Michael J. Fox. You got a skateboard because of Michael J. Fox. It's one of those things where you're like, it's so cool to have a Walkman. It's so cool to have a skateboard. And you just wanted to hang on the back of that car, on your skateboard.
I did that as a kid growing up.
And that's the thing. And it's just a great film. But again, I love all different genres. And I'll mention like Interstellar. Great movie, but you can't compare it to Back to the Future. It's just a completely different type of, a different type of movie.
Cool. I like to do that because I think you can really know a lot about a person down by knowing, especially in a film person, by knowing their film. And I think that's maybe a hallmark with you, is a little bit of the nostalgia. I always feel a bit of the film nostalgia coming through with you. So that film makes a lot of sense. So did that impact you at quite a young age? And set you
I mean,
on
it was
path?
just I think it was just one of those films that you.
Did it make you want to make filmmaking though? Did it set you on this path?
I would say so. I think a lot of the films that I watched when I was a kid, like I've always known what I wanted to do. So I think those certain films like Back to the Future or like Stand By Me or Goonies, it was always those films like, going on these adventures when you were a kid with your friends and all that. And it was just a massive part of your childhood. And and films like Back to the Future, where you can get creative and, you know, have this time machine or this car and, you know, just all the buttons and all the lights and shit like that. It was just, yeah, it was just a great, and the sound effects and the music. And I think that's what a lot of people forget. Those like old school 80s movies, the soundtrack was so important. That's what gives you those memories and those, like, the feeling, what it was when you were watching those films. And it was like, and I think that happens a hell of a lot less now compared to what it, you know, what it used to. But what's your favorite?
Mine's Reservoir Dogs.
Reservoir Dogs? Okay,
Yeah,
that's cool.
That's the one that set me on this road.
Yeah.
It's the first time I realized that there's something extra going on. There's
Yeah.
someone's.
Well, he
someone's
changed
pulling the
everything, man,
strings.
with that whole thing not
Yeah, he
being
did.
in order. I think I said to you a few weeks ago, I said you should play. There's a cut out there with Pulp Fiction in
Oh,
order.
yes, you mentioned that.
And you should try find that online because somebody cut it together and they just put it in order. I think I watched a bit of it like a long time ago, but it would be interesting to watch like Reservoir. I'm pretty sure they've done it with Reservoir Dogs and just placed it in order. In order, yeah.
It'd be a vastly more uninteresting film.
Yeah, no, definitely. Well, the cool thing, as you know, about Reservoir Dogs, it's like one of the biggest heist movies without the heist, you know? And that says it all. It's all what's going on behind the scenes and all the characters and stuff like that. But yeah, it's a great script. And
it translates from script to screen. It's word to word. It's exactly what he put on. And I think the thing I also resonate with that film is the mixture of both artistry and commercialism. There's that balance of we're creating and telling an exciting story,
yeah.
but in such an artistic and artful and intentional manner.
Yeah,
And I
well,
think
that's why there was that, you know, there was that very interesting shot, you know, cuts the guy's ear off and it
moves
tracks
off.
away.
Absolutely.
And you know, there was a, I think it was with fucking Harvey Weinstein or something like that, or Miramax Films, where they wanted to lose that scene, and it was like no, like he fought for it, and in the end, he was like, oh, remember Miramax. You know, we gave you that shot. We gave you that scene.
Yeah.
You know, and it's all those things that people remember. And you know, I mean, I remember there was a whole thing with Fight Club where, you know, Brad Pitt was fucking the chick in the house in the back room, and then Edward Norton comes to like peep through the door, and then he opens the door, and he's just got this like yellow like rubber gloves on, and I think it was one of the head executives was looking like, no, you can't do that, but Brad had this idea, but when they had the screening of the film, the test screen, everybody laughed and thought it was funny. So you know, it's interesting to see what ideas people have and want to keep in the film, and people go no, and then it ends up becoming like iconic scenes that people always remember or laugh at or think was funny. So it's just one person's perspective might be, oh, that's a bit too much, and then from somebody else, and it happened a lot with Fried Barry, where, you know, my producer would go, oh, dude, this is a bit hectic and all this, and people aren't gonna find it funny, and then we were at the screening and everybody's laughing their head off. So I think it's personality and sense of humor, and whether you have a sense of humor or personality to look at it.
Yeah.
So, like, what was your so before Reservoir Dogs, what was your like childhood movies that you grew up on that you were like that, you know, made a big impact on you as a kid? Maybe not to get into filmmaking, just like those films that like you watched again and again and really enjoyed.
So I'll give you two answers to that. I'll give you the first answer, and that for me it was actually books. For me it was
A little bookworm we have here.
for me it's I started reading I think at a young age. My brother went to school before me, and he taught me a bit, and I was picking up books I think before most others, and was jumping quite deep into stories. So I wanted to be an old classical writer from like the age of 11. I thought I want a bust of my head sitting in some old town somewhere. That was my idea of growing up.
So were you one of those guys when like when the film comes out based on the book and you're like, oh, the film's terrible, like you need to read the book?
No, I don't think.
I remember people said that about The Beach. I remember hearing that like a lot.
I haven't read the book The Beach. I've read the screenplay, and that is immaculate, and that writer director is just out of this world. But no, for me it was books. I read constantly, and that got me in love with storytelling. So I think my path into this was wholly on wanting to be a classical writer. I love classical literature, and I got into it through that. And what I realized over time is that I have a visual mind, and all stories that I'd end up writing were actually movies, whether for better or worse, or whether I liked it or not. And every time I put something down, is my format happened to be screenwriting, whether I wanted that or not. Do you want to?
No, we're good, guys.
Cool.
Okay.
Cool. So for better or worse, screenwriting was just my format. So.
But wasn't there that like it's coming back to I know you.
So that was answer number one.
Yeah. Okay.
Answer number two is it probably started like with most people is in animated stories. Is being a kid, the classical Disney really spoke to me. The Robin Hood cartoons, they were all very simple. And
sorry, Rob, how old are you now?
35.
35, okay.
Yeah. So back in the 90s, is we were still watching, like I thought Bambi and Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs were made the year that I watched them. When you were a kid, because you get it on VHS.
They were like what, like 50s or 60s?
They were in the 50s, 60s, 70s, and I was brought up on like the golden age, like Alice in Wonderland, on kind of that golden age of Disney cinema. Animated cinema at least, and animation is cinema. Del Toro would slam me down if I differentiated the two. But what I think captured me with those, and what still captures me with those, and which Pixar's picked up and taken along, is their stories were all allegories in a sense, and those are the type of stories that I tell and I like to make. Is you watch and there's absolutely a narrative and a story going through, but there's without a doubt some sort of lesson to learn at the end of it, being a better person or trying harder. And
so that's why you're such a nice person, Rob.
Definitely
there was
not.
a meaning. There was a meaning behind it.
Definitely not. So I'd say it was definitely those at a very early age.
But didn't you ever like chill there, like with like when as a kid I used to watch loads of movies with my dad. So didn't you like ever chill with your dad and watch like certain movies?
So then,
I grew up on like fucking like literally everything. But I remember always sitting there watching like westerns or like 80s horror films with my dad, or Jerry Lewis was like probably a big influence on myself. Like I loved all like Jerry Lewis films and stuff.
So then for me, then I suppose then getting a little bit older and watching a few more things was probably like Aliens and Terminator 2, Saving Private Ryan, like those films, which I was way too young to be watching at the time. I think I was between 10 and 12.
I think Aliens is probably one of the best films ever made, I reckon. Aliens
is definitely a film which absolutely captured my imagination and just really made me...
Aliens and Terminator 2, the pace of those two movies are amazing. It's just brilliant.
Just infallible. And I think the thing with, say, Aliens 2 that when breaking it down and looking in retrospect, is it's a story about two moms protecting their children. And I love that because everyone else is watching and seeing just aliens attacking each other and going on a spectacle.
The alien baby.
But really it's just about these two mothers out in space. And there's something magical about that. And I'd say those two films, I still remember Terminator 2 when that explosion goes off and she's watching the kids on the playing ground.
Yeah,
and
dude.
that
I remember the first time I watched it. That was
I
like
had nightmares
yeah.
for a very long time over that.
that was scary. They did that really well.
They did that.
You know, holding on to that
And
fence.
I watched it recently, and with VFX as it is today, it's not the same. And I was hoping to get the same effect.
Oh really?
And
I thought, but it's done pretty fucking well.
it's incredible. But I think with VFX the way it is today, and me being an older human being, having experienced that trauma, gotten over it, it didn't scare me. But the fact that it had the impact that it did on me and the people back then just shows it's a tremendous piece of art.
Have you ever seen the movie Fire in the Sky? It's like a early 90s movie. It's about this, it's based on a true story about this guy that gets abducted by aliens. And there's footage of in the film, you know, he gets abducted, and we show like what happens to him on the alien ship. So that was like early 90s. And when I watched that as a kid, I was like, it was fucking scary. But it was amazing at the same time. Like, it was scary, but I also loved it. I wanted to watch it.
You have to peek between your eyes. You got to see more.
And the prosthetics and stuff on that, and how they did that was like amazing. Even till this day, I think it's still one of the best like alien abduction scenes like ever. It's like so fucking scary and good. I remember as a kid, I made my cousin watch it. He stayed over at my house, and I made him watch it, and he had nightmares for like 6 months. I got grounded. It was like bad, but it's such a brilliant. You need to check it out. Like, still to this day, there's nothing that's captured that like alien abduction like as it is, like the puppetry and the animatronics or whatever. It's like, it's awesome.
See, my brother was he was the one getting grounded, because my brother was the one taking me along to go watch those films, because he needed someone to watch with him, and he was barely of age, which made me much younger. So that's why it turned out so unfortunately, because of him.
When I of a weekend, I would go stay at my grand's place, and it would be me and my brother, and then my cousin. And my cousin was 2 years younger than me, but back then it's that age gap is like pretty big. So we would, my cousin wasn't allowed to watch like aliens and stuff like that. So me and my brother, we'd have to like pretend to like fall asleep. So he would fall asleep, and then we could watch Terminator 1 or Aliens. So we'd have to do that just so we could sit there and watch these films. So being the age that you are now, and wanting to shoot feature films and doing more, in film and stuff, do you ever do you ever feel like the pressure that you need to do more, or you need to get there quicker than because it's a whole process. Like when I made Fry Barry, I spent my whole life leading up to that point to finally do that like feature film. And even after that's done now, it's like the story starts all over again now, where like I need to do another one, or you want it to be more successful, or do you ever feel that pressure with your life to doing more with film, or to try and get out there? Do you think there's it's like a body clock of a woman wanting to have a baby and wanting to have a kid at a certain age, and and it also relates to starting a family. Like, do you want to do you want to get ahead in your career and then start a family, or if you do it before, is it going to mess up your film career and not have the time? And do you ever feel pressured about that?
So I'll give you two answers. And I think there's a dichotomy in my mind and who I am, and that plays at all times. And I'm going to get your answer. It's a bit of a long way of answering it, but I think it's important. For me, we are literally on a rock floating through space, and everything is insignificant. We are a bleep and just in time, and it is so vitally important to be aware of that, and to just understand how insignificant everything is. And yet on the other side, and the dichotomy to that is how incredibly significant we are because of that impossibility of existing, and the fact that we have this small little bit of time.
Yeah.
So
and time goes fast, man.
It goes very, very fast. So to answer that question is both. On one point, I'm in no rush whatsoever, because very aware that at some point or at a point in time I will die, and there will be many things that I wish to accomplish that I haven't accomplished. And that happens to every human. There's no human who has crossed everything off their list and said, I can go.
Yeah.
And even if they have, they've still got a pot of tea that they were waiting to get to.
Yeah.
So you're going to die with something unsaid and undone. So I've made peace with that. But at the same time, I'm here, so I'm going to be here, and I'm going to be here very hard, and I'm going to be very present, and I'm going to work very hard. So every waking moment of my life is dedicated, like you, towards making that happen. There is nothing that goes on in my life that is not shaped or geared towards getting there.
Yeah. I feel that I'm not wasting any time. I'm always working towards something. But obviously, you want those goals to come quicker and faster. You want to get that money off the investors so you can, do the next one and stuff like that. But I do feel, and this is me already. I've done a feature film, but I still feel just as pressured to do another one. And then I think about, somebody like you that hasn't done the feature film yet. And then, are you feeling more pressure than me? Because you're like, shit, I also need to do a feature film because that's what I've always wanted to do. So I think it's, and it's one of those things where, is it getting in the way of relationships or is it getting away with money where you need to make more money to survive, or you go from once a kid, or you want to get married, and it's all those things that, that add up and jump to something. And that's why you're spending all your time working towards doing film, and you're not doing any other jobs. You're just concentrating on film, and we're very lucky and privileged to be able to do that. And there's other people that are working 8 to 9 hours a day doing another job, and then once a year making a little short film. And they must feel even worse for not having the time. But life is life, and you got to earn money, and you got to pay the rent. But it's like, like you work 8 to 9 hours a day, and you have all this time to, all this time that you want, or not enough time to be able to do what you want to do. And, you work your whole life just to retire at an old age. And then, most people that's working, Monday to Friday, they're working like, 9 to 10 hours a day to have an hour break, if you're lucky, 15 to 30 minutes. And then they're doing that for the whole year. And then even throughout the year, you're working a whole year, working 9 till 5, and then you get 2 weeks off, if you're lucky, to have like a little holiday, within those 2 weeks. And when you add that time up, and it just goes by so much quick. And every human, it's always that race against time and doing everything that you want to do by a certain age. And people feel pressured to get everything done. What they want to do, and that's the thing. It's like when you work in a 9 to 5 job, you're working 9 to 10 hours a day. You're coming home, you're chilling, you're relaxing, and then you got 4 hours to live without work. You got 4 hours to live, and then from there, you get 6 or 7 hours if you're lucky to go to sleep, and then it starts all over again.
Yeah, it's we're a strange species. We know we're going to die, but we live as if we've got forever. And the idea of living that kind of life is a bit bizarre in the expanse of what life is. So then, from my side, with regards to the pressure, is again, I'd say twofold. Is on one end is no pressure at all, as long as I'm just happy on a day to day in the process, and the process is good for me. I'm just at the top of the world. But at the same time, I'd very much love to make a film, and I've come into it much later than others. And I think at the start, there was an enormous, and that's, I didn't just arrive at this point where I've got this all-encompassing view of knowing to take it slow and just be happy with where I am. When I started out, I was grinding. I was putting in lawyer hours into this industry. I was doing or weekdays, weekends for 2 to 3 years on end, and working till midnight each night, and going places and getting where I wanted to go, but it was having a very significant toll on my body, and I reached burnout because of that.
See, but this is the thing, working, as an independent artist, director, producer, whatever, is that, when people are not in the film industry and they look at you, they think, what the fuck are they doing the whole time? They're at coffee shops having a little coffee or working on your laptop. And the fact is, a lot of the time, which I definitely know this for myself, is because we're working for ourselves, it's up to you how much you want to push yourself. And that's the thing. It's a lot of the time we're doing way more hours than normal day hours.
Yeah.
Normal job hours, whatever you want to call a normal job. You're actually, working to all hours in the morning, during the day and everything. So when you add up the hours, it's a lot. It's a lot of time. And go back to those, how many hours you have a day to sleep and to work, and that's why, there's people that will, you work Monday to Friday just to have 2 days off, or if you're lucky, lucky if you have 2 days, or you just got the Sunday off. So it's that balance of time and how you want to spend the time to get ahead and to try forward your career in every way, whether it's writing or pre-prod or speaking to investors and producers and trying to, get your work off the ground.
Yeah, I think, and I'm sure this goes for both of us, but if I could physically work 365 days a year, I would. It's I have to do things on the weekend to make myself relax and not think. Like, I've gotten into a card game, Magic the Gathering, because that, I know if I play that, I'm not thinking about it. If I'm not doing something, I'll be working. Like, going and surfing is great because you have to be present, because if you're not, either the waves are going to kill you or a shark's going to get you. So you've got to be there. And I find after doing something like that, I'm immensely relaxed, because we're on a podcast talking about this. I'm going to get in my car on the way back home and I'm going to think about it. I'm going to get home and I'm going to open up my laptop. I'm going to work on it. I'm going to do that. And then I'm going to put on YouTube and I'm going to watch a video on how to make movies or break down a movie. And then I'm going to go watch a movie. And it's never ending. So I've had to strive for balance and work really hard to get some sort of balance, because you need some sort of balance.
I think that's the key, balance. But it's hard to find.
It's fucking hard.
It's hard to find. But anyway, thank you so much for having a chat with me.
Thank you very much.
It's been a pleasure having you on. And I'm sure we'll catch up again.
I'm sure we'll see each other's films on the big screen very soon.
Cool.
Thank you. Cheers.
Cool.
Epic.
Wow. Fishes!